The honourable member for Delta-Fly.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Question without notice on Balimo Airport construction and completion. Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you for recognizing the people of our Delta-Fly district in Western Province by giving me time to raise my question without notice. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my question without notice goes to the Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation. It's on relation to Balimo Airport construction and completion. And please, Mr. Prime Minister, to take note. Mr. Speaker, before I proceed, I would like to provide a bit of background here. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2013, a contract was awarded to Ada Civil Works by then CSTB was approved by the NEC that time. Mr. Speaker, the Balimo Airport project was funded through the 10% equity non-CMC funds held in the trust accounts by the Department for the Mining People of Western Province. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at that time, the funding was not sufficient to attract bigger contractors who are specialized in airport construction, such as Global, Hebo, and so on. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I understand that when Balimo Airport was first constructed, it was indeed intended to be emergency airport for planes traveling from Daru to Kiunga, Kiunga to Moro, and Kiunga to Mount Hagen, or vice versa. Is also located in a strategic location whenever there is emergency while in the airport. The planes always will have Balimo Airport where they can land. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the airport construction has not been completed to date after almost 10 years when the contract was first awarded. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the long delays in getting the Balimo Airport completed thus far really affecting service delivery by public servants, operation of business houses, and movement of the general public. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, our Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape, was in Balimo for Cultural Show Center opening. He saw for himself what the situation was like. Mr. Deputy Speaker, due to the prolonged delays in the release of non-CMC funding and the completion of construction in 2021, while the late member was around, we visited the NAC office, wanted Balimo Airport to be under NAC, given its strategic location. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my question without notice are as follows. Mr. Deputy Speaker, given that Octeri mining has been and is still the biggest revenue earner in the country, can the national government direct NAC to upgrade the state of Balimo Airport and recognize it as airport instead of airstrip, since it is located in the new Delta-Fly district headquarters? Number two, Mr. Deputy Speaker, can the Marape Rosso government step in to fund Balimo Airport project completion, possibly through the ADB loan, like all other major airport infrastructure in the country, and it including the national budget? Mr. Deputy Speaker, once funding is secured and made available by the national government, can the NAC make it its business to have the engineers based on the ground to ensure successful completion of according to the scope of works. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Igolong, Member below Middle Fly or Delta-Fly for a series of questions. To respond to the member, the good member, I would like to highlight some of the process and procedures. Firstly, as he stated, we need to understand the status of the airport, whether it's an airstrip or an airport. If it's an airstrip, then it still falls under Rural Airstrip Association. If it's an airport, then it falls under and can be fall under the National Airport Corporation. But at this stage, it looks like it's still an airstrip. So we need to treat it like an airstrip. And if the member wish to upgrade, then there's certain process and procedures we need to follow. One, importantly, I would like to advise the member through you, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, is that firstly, we need to get CASA to survey the airstrip to determine the length, the size, and whatever future plan it has. That's number one. We need to get an engineering scope done. Number two, I'm pretty sure since it's an airstrip, it won't be under National Airport Corporation as yet, but look at the process and procedures, how National Airport Corporation can take responsibility for the airport if and when it's upgraded. So, as we are all in need for airstrips within our respective districts, I don't question the need for Delta-Fly having this particular airstrip. In relation to the ADB loan, KEDAP 2 is in the process now of being signed. There is an allocation for rural airstrip within the ADB loan. What we need to try to determine is which rural airstrip has been identified for that particular funding. Now, having said that, the funding in KEDAP 2 is not as big as KEDAP 1. That's number one. The other funding within KEDAP 2 is also focused on other infrastructure other than just airports. Okay, and that's why the funding is not as big. But can I reassure the good member, Deputy Speaker, that happy to look into it and assist him and other rural airstrips in other districts as well to try and understand the status of those airstrips and then how best the civil aviation or CASA and NAC can come into play to try and assist to get that airstrip open or upgrade to a specific category that they desire. For an upgrade, I would just like to state here that if you're looking at bigger planes to land on that airstrip, it'll require certain category and certain engineering scope that needs to be done. In terms of costing, the costing can come from national government or it can come from the DSIP or whatever other funding that's allocated to the member. But it's important that we get the engineering done, understand the member's aspiration in terms of development on the airstrip, and try to support him to get the necessary fund to get it to the level he wants it at. But different aircraft size will determine on the type of engineering and scope of work that needs to be engaged in with that particular airstrip. Toki lata so. Thank you, Speaker.